Right. Good afternoon, everybody. Welcome to our second workshop on AI and research with Johan Steyn. We are delighted to have Johan present a series of 3 workshops for us. The first one was on AI and education. Today's one is on AI and research, and we'll advertise the next one at the end of this workshop. So this is a very interactive session, and we do hope that you are able to ask questions and get involved in the conversation. And with that, I'd like to hand over to Johan.
And thank you so much. Hello, everyone. Thank you for taking the time in an over-Zoomed and Teams world for joining us. It's a wonderful privilege to be with you. You will see today that hopefully I will rattle your minds a little bit to think about a few things, but far is it from me to present to you the be-all and end-all of all the answers, because I think we all are grappling together on how this new wave of technology that's becoming exponentially more powerful is not only impacting education and higher education, but our world and the future of our children as well. So I would like today for you to contribute, to comment, to ask questions, to respectfully disagree, because I'm learning a lot from these sessions. I only know that little, to be honest, even though I work in this AI field. But just as an introduction, I've been working in artificial intelligence and robotic process automation for the last 8 or so years. I worked for one of our major banks and 2 of our major consulting and audit firms. And a lot of the work that I do these days is around, I have no other way to put it, but to call it the common sense approach to AI, because sadly, common sense doesn't seem to be that common. A lot of my clients, and these are often the large banks and the large telcos and insurers, want to just AI everything. And then I just consult them and advise them to just take a breath and a step back, because even though this technology is very powerful, it's not as powerful as Hollywood wants us to think it is. There's so much that only we as humans can do. And when will we reach a point where there's sentience and it becomes human-like? We don't know. It might be years and years from now. I don't know. But the ability for humans to use our experience and our wisdom and our ability to connect with each other is something you can't automate. You can't AI it. You know, that ability to walk past a colleague who looks really depressed, to put your hand on their shoulder and say, are you doing okay? What's wrong? Can I buy you a coffee? How do you AI that? You can't do that. So on the one hand, I always advocate that we have to understand this technology. We have to be able to use it because it can really be a tool for good in so many ways. On the other hand, it's a tool that, like all tools we've ever created, from the first time we've used rocks to scratch open the soil to unearth carrots to eat, and the tools we've created over the years and the centuries and in the millennia, really, AI also presents a lot of dangers, and I think a lot of you are aware of it. A lot of it's been in the news in this new era of generative AI. I mean, ChatGPT and GPT-4 from OpenAI has really brought AI more than any other tool before, I think, to the masses. Although it's just one of many, a plethora really of generative AI tools. I think we really are grappling with it as parents, as citizens, as human beings, and as people involved in teaching and academia. So today I just want to share some of my thoughts with you, but I would also love to hear your comments on how you think about it, how you and the institution that you may be working for are approaching it, because let's learn together as interested people on this webinar today. So I'm going to just quickly share my slides. I typically hate slides, but it's a good way to kind of just guide the conversation. I just want to fire it up quickly, and I just want you to confirm that you can see it and that you can see it in full screen, if you don't mind.
Yes, it's perfect. Thanks, Johan.
Fantastic. All right, so if you want to connect with me, if you want to see more about the work that I do and the articles that I write, predominantly in Business Day and Brainstorm and other publications, you can go to my website, aiforbusiness.net. But I want to start off with just some kind of ground rules, if you would, or housekeeping rules, and then just briefly touch on what we discussed the last time, and then get into the conversation of today. Please, constantly, as much as you can, add comments and questions into the chat. And toward the end, I'm going to definitely try and keep about 20 minutes or so open for us to discuss it, to learn from each other, to see what you are doing in your institution, to look at some of the tools that you might have been experimenting with. And then just a reminder, and I'll also mention it toward the end, that we have our third session on the 20th of June, a topic that I'm very passionate about, the future of jobs, the job market. Will there be large-scale job displacements, which I think will be the case in the next 20 to 50 years? How do we prepare ourselves for the future? And that has a direct connection with especially tertiary education. How do we prepare young people for jobs that we can't even imagine? How do we teach people to think? And I'm always hampering on this, the importance of the humanities. Never forget that, and just give me my one little moment. Religion, art, philosophy, ethics, we should never forget how important that is. I often joke, if a youngster today, like I did, because I went on to study theology as a bachelor's, a long story. But if you go to your parents as a youngster and say, I want to become an ethicist or a philosopher, or I want to study religion, what's the first thing they will say? I mean, as a parent, what would you say? Is, how are you going to make money out of that? But I think we should, in a world of rapidly advancing technology, and if we look at the future of jobs that we can almost barely not even imagine, we should focus on that ability to teach people to think and to work alongside digital assistants and digital twins and the like, and artificial intelligence. So keep an eye out for that on the 20th of June. The invites will go out over the next few weeks. Briefly to recap our last session, you'll see, and I'm not sure, Anne, that you'll send out the slides at some stage, that there is a link of the YouTube recording of our previous session, the future of education. What I did there is I started off speaking about when I discovered AI and the power of it, which was about 8 or 9 years ago when I worked for one of our banks. And even though I've been in technology for most of my career, I never knew much about AI until one of the large consulting firms did a proof of concept in the area of the bank that I worked at. And I was blown away by what this technology can do. And as I said, 8 or 9 years ago, but it coincided with me becoming a father. And I immediately connected the dots. I mean, if the technology can do these things, what kind of world will my son have one day when he wants to go to university, when he's an adult? What kind of jobs will be left for them if we can automate almost everything that humans can do? And that really put me on this trajectory to read as much as I can, collaborate with people, got involved in some academic work with some of the universities, but mostly from a consulting point of view with clients. We spoke about the future of AI. Is it utopic, or is it dystopian? Or sorry, utopian or dystopian? It can be utopian. It can absolutely contribute to longevity, to healthcare, to education. But again, like every tool we've ever made as humans, it has a dark side. And I'm sure most of you, if not all of you, are aware of the issues around biases in our data sets, privacy, constant surveillance, digital dictatorships and the like. We have to grapple with this, and we can't put our heads in the sand, so to speak, when it comes to where this rapidly advancing technology will take us and the future of our children. And we spoke about the hot topic of the day, ChatGPT and plagiarism. And as it applies to research and as it applies to academia, that was quite interesting. I mentioned a few of my thoughts about what I think the business school of the future should look like. How do we stay relevant? How do we stay ahead of the curve, the technological curve? How do we make sure that the basic principles of business, which I don't think will ever change, are taught, but also prepare our students and our learners for a world that we cannot imagine even in the next 3 to 5 years. And then I also touched on the fact that we as teachers, facilitators, academia, should do what we can to be aware of this technology. We don't have to become AI experts or data scientists, but we must realize that this technology will cause a rapid transformation of education and of tertiary education in particular. And I don't think we should approach it with fear, thinking we're all going to lose our jobs. We should approach it with hope and with anticipation and with excitement, learning as much as we can. And no matter how long you've been teaching, whether it's 10 years or 30 or 40 years, how do we stay abreast of this technology? How do we utilize it in our content creation, content delivery, our interaction with our students? It's almost, as I said, my son is 9 now, and if I look at his peers and his friends, even now there are some technological questions they pose at me that I can't answer. They are so with it, if you would. And even students that we teach these days who are 20, 22 or 24 years old, they grew up in this world. I didn't grow up in that world. I think most of you didn't either. So how do we make sure that we're able to speak their lingo, their language? I mean, TikTok is the one thing that I've never explored because I actually am very much against it. But how do we use TikTok to educate? I don't know that. How do we use the next platforms that's coming down the line over the next few years? It's exciting. It's also a little bit scary. So that was just the previous session. So let me just take you through the agenda. And again, I want to encourage you, ask questions, give comments, help us with the way you see these things that's working in your institution, things that you've seen that could be contributory to what we do as educators. I want to start off with this post-truth world that we live in. Big topic, contentious topic. Can we believe the things we see and the things we hear and the things we read these days? This age of misinformation, this age of deep fakes, it's going to it's already opened up a huge can of worms. And what is the role of teaching and academia in this world of post-truth? That's where I want to just set the scene. I want to look at some of the applications of AI and research. And again, I'm going to just show you some of the tools that are being used. There are most likely hundreds more. And I would love to hear what you recommend and that you use it in your institution. I want to look at some of the benefits and challenges of AI and research, because there are some massive benefits, but there are some really scary downsides as well. And then how do we make sure that there is, that we safeguard the way we assess? Are we even relevant in the way we assess, tests or transcripts or research papers in a world where it's so easy to do it with tools like ChatGPT and the like? I've played with most of the plagiarism tools out there, commercial and academic. And in most cases, where I have gone out to use ChatGPT to write my whole paper, most of them did not pick it up. And then I used some of the articles I've written that are authentically just me. And almost all of them in some of the articles picked up plagiarism, where I know I have not plagiarized. And it brings us to the topic of, do we go back to oral examinations? Or are there tools out there that can look at the writing style of students in previous assessments and dissertations and papers and compare their individual writing styles to a new submission to pick up whether there are differences? And then we're just going to conclude and look at some of the questions and answers. Let's just briefly look at the post-truth world. The mobile phone and the smartphone has revolutionized our worlds. If you think of it, we hold all the information that was ever created by humans for thousands of years in the palm of our hands. We couldn't have imagined 20 or 30 years ago that our music, the radio, the weather, all of our communication, all of our interaction with all of our friends, and so forth, could have been in this little device that we can easily carry around in our hands. One of the challenges of technology, I think, is where it was supposed to set us free from lack of knowledge and from the biases that we grew up with, and from the fear of others, people from other ethnicities, for instance, or other parts of the world. It should have set us free because it brought us into this global connected world where it was so easy to connect with so many different people from all over the world. And also from a point of view of not knowing, not understanding, to have access to knowledge and books, all the books that has ever been written, all the knowledge that's ever been produced. It should set us free from this darkness that we lived in for thousands of years as humans. But sadly, technology has done the opposite. It has made us more biased. It has made us more fearful of each other. It has made us more susceptible to wrong information. I mean, our social media feeds largely keeps on pushing the information that the algorithms tell them that we want to see, the information we want to see. And that could be bias against certain genders, certain ethnicities, people from certain parts of the world. And I mean, the COVID pandemic really brought this to the fore. And again, we have all different beliefs. You know, for me, the one example was, and sadly, I had many very bad conversations with my family about, does 5G cause COVID? And they were very hell-bent on it because all of their social media feeds, all of the news feeds they were seeing were basically amplifying this belief. And there are thousands of other examples. But technology should have set us free and should have connected us and should have given us knowledge, but it's done the opposite. And it seems like that tendency is just increasing. You know, next year we've got the election in the US. And if you've been following the news on that, the fear of how technology might impact the election in the most powerful military and economic country in the world. It already played a huge role in the 2016 elections when Trump was elected. And I'm not making a political statement there or taking sides, but it's beyond question that the way that bots on Twitter and other platforms played a role had an immense impact on that election and the outcome. It even brings us to the point of asking, is democracy still relevant or not? What is the future of democracy? One of the best definitions I've heard about democracy is that it's the engineering of consent. The engineering of consent. Because political parties want you to consent. And for many years, we've had placards next to the road, we've had leaflets, we've had posts, but now it's in our hands. We are constantly bombarded with it. So if we have to consent to elect a certain party or a certain politician, on what basis are we doing it? And if you think of what is the biggest ambition of politicians who are elected, it's to be elected again. It's the next election cycle. So I think we're really in for some interesting times around democracy, what it means to live in a society where we have supposed freedoms, although we are already under constant surveillance. If I look at my son and the things that he's reading online, and I'm very careful about his screen time on his iPad and the applications he can access. But even when he comes home after school and he talks about what his friends are talking about, their worlds are shaped by a digital force from a very young age. Most of us on this call today have not grown up with that. We only discovered that in our 20s or 30s or maybe even our 40s. What world will they live in? How is their view of the world and of other people who don't look like them, who don't act like them? who believe in a different philosophy or faith than them. How is that being shaped? So that device that you and I hold in our hands, that we sleep next to, that we shower with, go to the bathroom with, that's our constant companion. How much is that impacting the way we see the world? And how much is this kind of technology impacting the way that we need to educate, especially young people, coming out of this world of being digital natives, whose whole worlds have been shaped by the technology? I want to bring a positive message. As a practitioner in the field of AI and as somebody who's somewhat involved in academia, I want to ask you, if you're involved in academics, if you're teaching people, young people, we desperately need you. If you are involved in research, you are playing a much larger role in this world that we live in right now than I think you've ever played in before. We are desperate for academics, for researchers, for teachers to guide us, because we are opening up an ethical can of worms when it comes to what it means to be human, when it comes to brain-computer interface technology and implants, designer babies, massive potential job losses and the like. We rely on you more than we've ever relied before. So my message to you today is one of challenge, but not of criticism, one of invitation to say, let's work together. Let's stay ahead as much as we can as to where this technology is taking us. But the one thing is the truth. Veritas. Very philosophical topic. What is the truth? What is truth? What is truth in the world of mistruth, of these social media feeds that are, and other platforms that are potentially deceiving us? And is my truth the same as your truth? But how can we use this technology and regulate it to make sure that it shows us the truth? If you think of large language models like Google's Bard and OpenAI's ChatGPT and GPT-4, it uses all the information on the internet to produce the answers of the prompts that we're giving it. But the internet is such, I think, such a true reflection of humans, because, and this is not news to any of you, the internet is filled with a lot of nonsense, a lot of good things and truth as well. But you can't just take these billions of parameters and basically scrape all this information from the internet that's unregulated and provide answers. You know, I don't even let my son use ChatGPT yet. I want to train him how to use it responsibly. I want to train him how to use it for the heavy lifting, for the ideas generation. But you can't just have a blanket acceptance of everything that ChatGPT is giving you. And for that matter, that a Google search or a Microsoft Bing search or any internet search is giving you. It comes back to that idea of the humanities, the ability to think critically, think for yourself. Use the technology to do that heavy lifting, to that ideas generation, but use your critical thinking and your experience, because AI and automation at this stage, and I think for the foreseeable future, will never replace human intuition and experience. So how do we get to a fact that the truth that we are presented, or the facts that we are presented with online or through these language models, are closer to the truth and are factually, verifiably truth, rather than misconceptions and just people's opinions? I cannot stress this enough. Human values. What is it that makes us human? Even though we are all different, we have different paradigms, different views on so many different things. But I think, especially if you're a parent, if you're a grandparent, I think it shapes what it means to be human. How do we look after the next generation? How do we value the importance of humans and the value that only humans can bring at this stage, that AI will never be able to do? So I think our research should not only focus on more and more on dispelling misinformation, presenting factual truth, but on being aligned with ethics and philosophy on what it means to be human and on human values. So knowledge of the universe expands as we go to Mars, as our friend Elon Musk wants to do this, and creating this multi-planetary species, as he and others often speak about, which I think is a good thing. As our knowledge of this expanding universe expands, what will that mean? I think statistically, it is probable that we are going to discover other life forms on other planets. I don't know when it's going to happen. I don't know how it's going to happen. I doubt that it will be human-like beings or intelligence. But imagine the ethical can of worms that will be opened when we finally do discover that there is other life on other planets. What will that mean for humans? You know, for centuries, we've had this human-centric view. I don't think that's as relevant these days anymore. But where we thought we are the center of the universe, the whole universe is revolving around us, as they believed, especially in the Middle Ages. I think most of us no longer believe that. I think we know we're part of a bigger cosmos, and it's not just us that's important. But that's almost a philosophical idea. But what if it becomes a factual idea? That there are other forms of life and intelligence elsewhere in this universe. How will it impact us? And to what extent will academics and researchers and philosophers and ethicists help us to find our place in the world? Will we still feel valuable as humans if we're no longer the smartest beings in the universe or the only life forms like us in the universe? That'll be interesting. I think we will get to that point in our lifetime still. It'll be interesting to see. Who knows? That's the topic. Is human android or human AI or human non-human intelligence collaboration. We already see this in the workforce, where a lot of employees, especially in the knowledge work kind of space, are dealing with digital twins, with automation, with cobots or robots, or assistants, digital assistants that's guiding you in how you work. Many of you might have heard of Microsoft's Copilot platform that's, as far as I can see, not available in South Africa yet, or I think anywhere in the world. But if you look at some of the demos that they've shown, how it can create slides and PowerPoint and spreadsheets and documents and content for you, much better even than ChatGPT can do at the moment. Where's the difference between the work that humans do and that non-human entities can do? And again, it's a philosophical concept, I think, because I do think the work that we do is important. You know, work adds a lot of meaning to us. That's why it's so horrible to do a job that you hate, that you're not appreciated in. That's very repetitive, that does never, call on your intelligence and your experience. But as more and more of the work we so easily do can be done by non-human entities, androids, artificial intelligence agents, where will it leave us? Where will it leave us if we can do no more work because it's all being replaced by AI? And I'm sure many of you will know about authors like Nick Bostrom from Oxford, who wrote Superintelligence, a fantastic, difficult, long book to read. And Yuval Noah Harari from the Hebrew University in Jerusalem, also previously at Oxford, as far as I remember, who wrote Sapiens, 21 Lessons for the 21st Centuries, and Homo Deus. Harari spoke about this creation, this potential creation of what he called a useless class. What if all jobs that humans do can be automated? One of the things I want to encourage my son to look at one day is non-automatable jobs. I think I mentioned this in our last session. I think jobs like plumbing and bricklaying might just become some of the highest paying jobs in the future. Because how do you automate that? Caregiving, nursing, the medical world, there's a lot we can't automate, and many, many others. But I think if we have this conversation in 20 years from now, we might have seen an upheaval in the kind of jobs that really, really make money and those that have totally disappeared. So this idea of where we fit in, not only in the universe, but in the world of work, is a space that we need research to be conducted in, and it's happening. We need a lot. We need academics and philosophers and ethicists to think about this, to grapple with this, to disagree, so to help us to find our place. The idea of longevity, the idea of the impact on AI on healthcare is a topic that a lot of people already know about. A lot of us are speaking about it. What if the person who's going to live to 150 is already born? And there are some articles that seem to think about that. Think about the idea of pension. Because how do you finance another 50 or 60 years when you go on to pension? Most companies that I've worked with, and that many of you might be working with, or institutions, still have a policy that you have to retire at 60. People say 60 is the new 40. I mean, if you are lucky enough that your health is good, why stop working at 60? Why get rid of people with so many years of experience and wisdom just because they are 60? I think even mandating that people retire at 70 or 80 is ridiculous. I think as long as people can work, as long as they have the energy, I think we should let people work and share what they've learned. But we will have a much longer living population on Earth because of this technology. And I admit that there would be a divide, because a lot of the world still suffers from illnesses that we should have and have solved decades ago, but they're still dying from cholera and other diseases and from malaria. But I think from a developing world point of view, how do we finance the pensions of people who will live to 110, 120, 150? What is their place in the world of work with AI when you become 90 or 100? We need you as academics to help us figure this out. And then, of course, financial inclusion. How do we make sure that more and more people are better off? And again, if you compare where we are today to 200 or 300 years ago, many more people in the world are much better off from a healthcare point of view and from a financial point of view than most people were 2 or 3 centuries ago. But where are we going to in the future? Will this technology that will automate most of our jobs reverse that trajectory? Will more and more of the world's population become poorer and unemployed than we are at the moment? Will we make the small percentage of people who are uber rich even richer? And more people are becoming really poor and live in abject poverty. And then, of course, and very relevant, is our natural world, climate change. And there are many theories around it. Is the world really getting warmer? Is climate change true? And I sometimes take it with a pinch of salt myself. Although I think we can agree that from an industrial revolution point of view over the last century or two, we are causing a lot of harm to this world. And we are making debt that we on this webinar most likely won't have to pay. Our children and their children will have to pay it. What will the climate and the natural habitat of this world look like in a number of decades from now? How will technology destroy that? We were all very excited, I think, about large language models and GPT technology, but the computing power needed for those models, the heat that those servers and those cloud farms generate, is horribly bad for our environment. There's a great article, if you Google it, I think it's called The Dark Truth of Technology or something like that. But the smarter computers are becoming, the more we rely on artificial intelligence, the more we are destroying our natural environment because of the heat and the gases, etc., that's produced by these massive server farms across the world. I see that companies like Microsoft and others over the last few years have been looking at placing server farms under the ocean. There's maybe something to think about. But what world will my son live in when he's older, when his children are older, when our children's children are older? How much of the natural world would have been destroyed by this last hunger for technological advance? So everything you see on the screen here, and I can obviously show a lot more, I think, are things we need to think about. Where's my place in the world, my place in the universe? What does it mean to be human? What is truth? What does it mean to be healthy into the foreseeable future? What does it mean to have enough to live? And what does it mean to live in a world that can sustain us for the foreseeable future? All of this, I think, academics and researchers play a leading and a pivotal role to help us. I see there's already 10 chats in the chat box. I can't see anything else because I'm presenting. Thank you. We're going to get to them. Please keep on commenting and asking. Let's just look at some of the applications. And I want to just draw your attention to a local company. And this is by no means advertising, but I want to just briefly show you the art of the possible. I have a friend in Cape Town, Dries here. His wife was a lawyer at a very large law firm, and then she started her own law firm. And her first client gave her 30 gigabytes of data on a hard disk and said, look at all of these emails and give me a legal opinion. Now, I think even large legal firms will struggle with that, but how does a one-man show, if you would, legal startup struggle with that? And being a data engineer, he wrote some algorithms to look through all of these data. And his wife was able to give an accurate legal opinion within a week. And that made him start this company, Doc Insights. And there are many companies like that. And it makes me very proud that in South Africa, there are many companies like this. It's not just Silicon Valley and the Microsofts and the Amazons of the world doing it. But they did some interesting work with the investigative journalists, with the Daily Maverick. So they took the links, the so-called Gupta links, all of those emails. They took the data from the state capture report. I think it was about 150,000 pages. Pushed it into this platform. I just want to kindly ask you all to just make sure that you're on mute. I hear a lot of people speaking. And what this platform does, and I'm going to bring it back to academic research, because a lot of search platforms are looking for keywords. If you say, where does the word Gupta or Zuma, in this case, appear in these documents, a lot of platforms can easily show you that. I mean, even if you have the Microsoft Word and you do Control F and you search, it'll show it to you. But how do we look for semantic search? How do we look for contextual search? And one of the things that this and many other platforms can do with large data sets is look for context or semantic meaning, not just keywords. So for instance, if you think again of the Gupta leaks and the state capture report, if you look for something like misappropriation of funds, then it will bring up the results of corruption and other related topics. So it doesn't just look for that specific word, because keyword search is extremely limited. So what happened from this proof of concept they did with the Daily Maverick, which is very interesting, is that a lot more people went to visit the Guptas at the Saxion World Compound. And many more people were involved, because what it will do is it will look for names, surnames, even misspelled names and surnames, ID numbers or ID numbers missing a digit or more digits, or other relevant information. And it starts connecting the various patterns in these 150,000 pages that will be very difficult, if not impossible, for humans or a team of humans to do. I start thinking of how something like this can apply to academic research. Not far from where I live is UNISA, and I go to their library once every 2 weeks. It's, I think for me at least, like all large libraries, a really sacred space. 8 floors, more than 8 million volumes, and those are physical books, not even the digitized books or journals. I love that smell of the books. I love just walking. It's quiet and it's sacred. And I love going through these books, all these new books, all of these old books. But how can we use AI-related technology when it comes to all of this information and all of this information we've ever created? Now, many universities across the world for many years now have been working on digitizing content. But there are still so many books, especially older books, that have not been digitized yet. But just imagine what we can do if we can use a large language model kind of concept to go through these volumes and volumes of books when we do research. And I will shortly show you some of the tools that are available. You'll be familiar with them. There are most likely many more. Just for a moment, come with me on this journey of imagining the future, imagining the possibilities. Just imagine if you can take those 8 million volumes in a library like UNISA or UP or Stellenbosch or in many of our global universities. And like ChatGPT, it's not just what most universities have today, which is helpful, where if you put in a keyword or a concept or an author's name, you'll get a list of possible volumes or resources to look at. But what if all of that data and all of those books in the library are digitized and a large language model specific to that university or to university research actually looks at all of that data, like the DocuSites and Gupta Leaks example I've just given you, and it starts showing you the relationship between names and entities and research articles, etc. What will that do for the future of academic research? And I'd love to see some of your comments in the chat. Here are just some of the ones that I've seen and looked at. There are most likely many, many others. One of the challenges with technology like ChatGPT is once you because you can copy and paste a fairly large spreadsheet and put it into the chat and say, give me an analysis. What happens to that data from a privacy point of view? Where does it go? Who controls it? Who can see it? A lot of my corporate customers are currently looking at building large language models that are ring-fenced specifically to that bank or insurance company or telco. So that when you're on a call with a client, the large language model can look at all of the client's data across the business and give you an instant answer to their query. Because it's ring-fenced, we no longer worry about leakages, security, privacy, and the like. But I wonder what universities are doing. Again, I'd love to hear if any of you are knowledgeable about it. Are some universities looking at these large language models from a digitized data set to enable students to do better research? I think that's a really interesting topic. And we're almost done because I'd love to currently look at the 13 comments and questions there. Just one view, and hopefully it's not too far off. When students do research, what do they spend their time on? And I think some of these percentages might change somewhat. But if we go from 1 to 6, reviewing the literature, about a third of our time in research, I would say at least 20% is spent on that. And then collecting data, in whichever way we're doing that, is another huge portion of what we spend time on when we conduct research. Then we need to analyze the data, obviously the writing and the drafting of our findings, the review and revision, and then obviously the final presentations. But what if we can use large language models to take, say, steps 1, 2, and 3, and even 4, and automate it to a large extent? How much time will it save? How much more data, data and resources and sources out there could we potentially access through large language models to have a much larger comprehensive view on the topic that we are researching? And where's the balance between what large language models can do to help us with the so-called heavy lifting, as I've mentioned, and between me as a human, or a student, or a researcher, applying my own knowledge, my own lens, my own expertise on that data? And I think we have such a dire need for more rapid and more expansive research, given where this world is going. And hopefully, this technology can help us do a lot more research that's relevant, not only to attaining a PhD or a master's, but to the future benefit of humanity. I'd love to see how this pie chart will look when we put over it large language models that can work for academia. Some of the benefits here, and again, these are somewhat common things. I think like any business, if you think of a tertiary educational institution, from the finding students, marketing, registering students, looking at their previous academic records, training, teaching, the delivering of content, essentially the whole value stream from end to end can already be largely automated. Those technologies exist. To what extent it's being utilized in your institutions would be interesting to see. Looking at large data sets, which I've already been speaking about. And again, it will never take away the role of humans to provide oversight, no matter how much we automate it, no matter how much we ChatGPT it, whether you approve of it or not in your institution, we still need humans to provide oversight. And then, of course, the topic, and with this, I'm always toward the end. How do we not only teach and train, how do we assess using this technology? How do we safeguard integrity? I've mentioned this previously, plagiarism, and again, I don't know what your experience is. My experience is with all of the tools and platforms that most universities use, largely lacking, I think, in picking up plagiarism. And again, it's picking up plagiarism in my own little experiment on my originally written content. It flags some of it as plagiarism. It seems to be inaccurate. I'd love to hear if some of you are using or have found tools that are quite good at picking up plagiarism. Is the alternative oral examination, like I've mentioned? Or are there tools that you know about that can look at previously submitted material, looking at specific nuances and writing styles, that can compare it with new submissions? And then grading. Now, when it comes to multiple choice, we know it's so, in most of the tools we use, it's very automatable. I'm sure you all have already automated it. When it comes to grading of research papers, to what extent can we automate it? Do we just look at keywords? A plagiarism aside, do we look at keywords? Do we look at semantic search? Can an AI grade a research paper even 50%, even 80%? I don't know. I think it can most likely add a lot of benefit, limited benefit. But how do we grade, especially PhD kind of dissertations through AI? It would be interesting to see. And I'm going to stop sharing now. I want to remind you again just of the 20th of June event, future of work and the job market. And with that, I'm going to stop sharing. And I'd love to see what's in the chat. See the time. We still have a few minutes left. Again, it's, as I said in the beginning, everyone, it's learning together. It's seeing what are you using that we can learn from. What are you maybe disagreeing with? Are these tools usable or not yet? Let me just quickly see. Let me open this. Let me see, Kobus, I'm glad you've joined us so much. Climate change evangelists are the ones owning the server farms. That is true, just on that. And again, without wanting to becoming controversial, who makes money from all the climate change hype that's out there? It's interesting to follow that stream of where the money is going. Climate change, I think, is real. Is it as bad as people are saying? But you're right. A lot of them are owning the server farms. Thank you, Alpha, for that comment. To leave Erica, I'd love AI to help me grade. I think it can most likely help a lot. But again, Erica, where's that balance between your expertise, your knowledge, sometimes our gut feel, and I know that's very subjective, and algorithms doing the grading? Sometimes you can just look at a submission and the student don't know what they're talking about. They're winging it. Can AI detect that? That's an interesting conversation. I see a lot of more coming in. And I don't know, from your side and from a business school association point of view, what's maybe in some of the other conversations you're having, what is the view on this topic? I think a lot of us are grappling with it. Do you think some are further ahead on this topic maybe than others?
Thanks, Johan. Yeah, I think I've just been in the conference, the AMBER conference in Spain, and I sat next to the Turnitin people, and they've obviously reacted with their products and the plagiarism rejuvenated product, so to speak, of what they're putting out. And everyone is grappling with very similar things of how are they going to be changing their particular products to assess plagiarism. I see Teresa says something there, the AI percentage when grading assignments, how do you handle this if you're the assessor? Teresa, I'm not sure. I think that there is so much out there still to happen. And Johan has just really just scratched the surface here in this conversation here today. In the conference, it was a global conference. Everybody is grappling with it in different ways. Some people have not even started on this journey. They haven't even considered using AI or how it's going to impact the business school, whereas others are really quite concerned about it, using it even for admissions processes and things like that. But I mean, I know this workshop specifically is on research, and the focus was on research and how we can use AI to help us here. And I think, Johan, you're absolutely right. There's so many developments that are taking place on a daily basis. There's so many products out there that we haven't even thought about or used. ChatGPT at the moment is the one that everybody is talking about and focusing on, but what else is out there? What is happening? So yeah, I think it's a wait and see space, but certainly for researchers, you have just got to keep on researching and seeing what comes up. I know for Cobus, you love chat. You introduced chat to me not so long ago. And yeah, I'd be interested to hear what other people have to say on this call. Thanks. Alan, do you want to say something? Alan Pillay?
Sorry about that.
No problem.
Not really, thanks.
Okay.
I have problems driving and I just had no connection here in between. Sorry.
No problem. No problem.
Thank you. Thank you.
Any other comments or anyone else would like to say something?
I think, and while we're waiting, I think and I see Sholiswa's hand is up, but just to mention, I think no one really knows. And as a community, we have to keep on figuring this out, working together, learning from each other. It's okay not to know, because I actually don't really know myself. It's an important enough topic to figure out together and to benefit each other. And even if today just sparked some new thinking, I think already, in my view, it would have been worthwhile tuning in.
Absolutely. Khaliswa, you got something?
Okay, thank you so much. Good afternoon, colleagues. I think what I want to pick up on is what Johan spoke about in terms of assessments, because being a person that has used ChatGPT, I was just checking what can it do and what can it not do. So I think that he spoke about having maybe some sort of oral exams. I think I'm up for that, as well as the ones that are like the written examinations, whereby students can be able to apply their mind. It's not guaranteed, because when it comes to plagiarism as well, some even go an extra mile. There are even websites, maybe like your TikTok videos, that are teaching students on how to use certain types of AI to paraphrase, to redraft everything. It could be something that is like copied, and then it can change all the words on it, use all the synonyms and everything. So it's not guaranteed. Anything that is done using a computer, it's something that I'm not going to be going forward to say, let's continue to do that. So for me, I'm up for those assessments that we are going to have sit-down exams, and the student will write exams. And also anything that has to do with something that is scenario-based. So those are the type of assessments that I've seen that it's going to be difficult for students to get away with it using these AI platforms, because if I say something like this happened at Toyota, so I'm expecting Toyota to come back to me, so it can't just be something that is generic or something that is general. So all those types of assessments are something that I've seen when I was using ChatGPT. It cannot just be talking about something that I have not given it to just anybody. So if I can be able to be as creative enough as a lecturer, then I'll be able to get something out of it. Thank you.
Thank you, Khaliswa. Michael?
Hello, Michael. Can you hear me?
Yes, we can hear you, Michael.
Oh, yes. Great. Thanks for that, Johan. I enjoyed it. I think, and I love the fact that you brought up the human values and the natural environment and our connection to all of that. And I'll just use what you referred to as well in the sacredness of the library. And I mean, we can also view the earth as a kind of a sacred living library, right? And on that theme, this is a fascinating time because the ancient knowledge and indigenous cultures like the Hopi have defined this time as a time of the Great Awakening and the Great Renewal. And this is happening, during all this change and flux and chaos that's going on, and the emergence of AI. But within this context, simultaneously is this Great Awakening. And I think that's a really important aspect of our lives and our futures in terms of consciousness, and this awakening into a new consciousness, into that sacred consciousness as higher sort of frequency, higher dimensional beings, unlike what Harari talks about in terms of Homo sapiens, but rather Homo luminous or Homo universalis. So there's a whole new opportunity in terms of how we're going to be relating in the future. And like you mentioned, I think a whole lot is unknown. But what AI cannot substitute is that sacredness that you described in the silence of the library, and that experience as an analogy for that new consciousness and this Homo luminous being that we are evolving into. So yeah, you brought up that for me. So thank you for that.
Yeah, Michael. Wow. Thank you. Give us some more chats and let's see, Luca, good to see you here.
Yeah, I think just on just the conversations we've been having at the various business schools is the different levels of engagement that people are having during assessments. Is it functional? Is it application? What level are you actually testing? So that is going to be something that's going to develop and grow as each business school works out what tools they want to utilize or not, as the case might be, and how involved they are going to be in accepting AI as part of the assessment process or part of the research programs, etc. So I think this is a space definitely to watch and work on. And we will be able to obviously have another workshop later on in the year, and we can discuss how things have developed and changed in 6 months, from a conversation that we're having now and where business schools are actually at to where they are in the future. And I think also with our business schools, it does depend on the university background and their underlying acceptance or not of what rigor or what they are requiring the business schools to work within as well. So from my side, Johan, I'm not sure if there's anything else you would like to bring up, but obviously this has been a fascinating discussion. We always really are delighted that you're able to come and share just a small part of your knowledge with our community. We really respect and are grateful for your time and energy. And as you know, Johan works with Watson University. He's one of the top global voices on AI. And obviously, if you have any questions, would like to discuss anything in particular detail with him at a later stage, you know where to get hold of him, or you could get hold of him through SABSA. Just so that those people that are on the call know, SABSA is a nonprofit organization. We are an association of 22 business schools spread throughout South Africa. And we do capacity development workshops to improve the higher education sector. So Johan, thank you for helping us on our small journey as we carry on that side. And is there anything else that you would like to say before we close?
Yeah, no, and thank you for the opportunity. Thank you for everyone for your time. It's not necessarily a super exciting topic. We all feel hyped up and let's go AI everything. Hopefully it's just a call to think together, help each other, because it's important for the future. I am very limited in what I know about this topic, even though I work in it. It's daunting, to be honest, because it's changing so quickly. We need each other to work together going forward to secure the future of our children. And thank you very much.
Thank you, everybody. And thank you, Johan. And we look forward to seeing you on the 20th of June for the next one on AI and the job market. Take care, everyone. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.